What's up, gangsters? This video is going to be about a project that I've been pretty excited about lately. Not a model building project per se, but an airbrush building project. And I know you're immediately like, wait, what? Okay, so here's the deal. If you've watched much of my nonsense, you know that I do most of my paint work with the very reliable Iwata TRN1 trigger airbrush. All right, this thing is great. It's a Neo, and yeah, I've been whipping the shit out of this thing for 5 years running now. Yeah, anybody who wants to talk shit about the Neo being a Chinese knockoff of lower quality, yeah, whatever. This is a wonderful airbrush. And I like the trigger style because, as you may know, my hands don't work so good. Because of a spinal cord injury that I suffered about a decade ago, operating a normal double action style trigger is very difficult for me. I can do it, but not with any level of confidence or control. This, on the other hand, I have good muscle memory for and good control with. So I use this for almost everything I do, and my bigger airbrush that I use for, like priming large jobs and things is an ep315, which is a 0.5 millimeter needle, and it's also trigger style. This, however, is a 0.35. Great for general purpose work, but for super fine, like detail work, touch-ups, that sort of thing, not so much. It's just a little too big. So what I've been using, hold on, gotta take this phone call. Okay, so where was I? All right, so what I've been doing is I've got this. All right, this is a Badger Sotar, and I've obviously customized it a little bit. This is one that Gil Mondragon gave me years ago. It's a 0.18 millimeter needle, I believe. I'm never quite sure if it's 0.18 or 0.2. Not like that's much difference. But this one's got the high roller trigger, so that helps me out a little bit. And then I took this Grex grip and modified it enough to be able to put it on here. And so I can get by with this thing. But the only real reason is that with the Sotar, okay, this needle stop actually can act as a needle retarder, because with this ball on the end of the needle, if you keep unscrewing the needle stop, it eventually starts to push on that ball and it pulls the needle back. All right, so you can set the needle to be always open just a little bit, and that means that all you have to do to start blowing paint is push the button, which I can handle. I don't have to worry about pushing and then pulling back and doing it in a controlled fashion, because that's just where I get screwed up. So it effectively turns this into a single action airbrush, and it works great for me, especially if I'm doing like I've been working on this Hasegawa 132nd P40, and it's got all of this scallop type camo. And I wanted to, obviously, do a nice clean job of spraying that if I could, and I wanted to do it freehand because they were all done with a spray gun. So you can see I did all of that with the Sotar. The problem is that because I can't easily go from spraying really, really tiny to instantly spray in a larger pattern, you know, like normal users can, by gradually opening the trigger more, I'm basically just stuck there coloring a tiny, tiny little spot that's the size of, you know, the tip of a felt tip pen. Just, you know, like I think I spent probably 4 or 5 hours spraying all that camo, and it really should not have had to take me that long. But, you know, I'm using the tools that I have. So, and part of another problem that I find with this thing too is that even with MRP, even when I get the paint mix dialed in for painting really small, and I get my pressure, I'll shoot it like, you know, 8 or 10 PSI, and I've got a Mac valve on the end of my hose so I can dial down the flow rate, and I can, you know, set the trigger opening, and I can get this thing dialed in where I can spray, you know, a pencil line. But it will still clog up after a little bit of spraying, and I can easily unclog it with just a quick flick of the trigger. But that's not a quick flick for me. I have to stop and focus on it and point it off to the side, blow some paint through it, get myself reset, get where I'm on the button, you know, and go back to it. And, you know, and I can handle it, but it's a lot more effort than I want it to be, and not just, you know, it's just not the most effective solution. So, all of this preamble leading up to the fact that I've had long desired to have a 0.2 millimeter trigger style airbrush. Now, anybody who knows airbrushes is immediately going to say, well, why don't you get a Grex Tritium? Because they can be, you can buy them with a 0.2, a 0.3, a 0.5, or a 0.7. And my answer to that is yes, indeed, that is correct. And I have one right here with a 0.5 millimeter needle in it, and as you can see, I've got it set up for the fan tip. And I want to keep it this way. I like this, especially now that I've got a full-size California Air compressor that'll move 3.3 CFM, which is really what you need to effectively run a fan tip like this. Because these things are a compromise. I know Paul Budzik hates these things, but they're actually not that bad if you have the airflow. Anyway, I want to keep this set up the way that it is. So the only option would be to go ahead and buy another Grex Tritium with the 0.2 millimeter needle, and I could do that. They're good airbrushes, but when I did my testing of the Grex, and I ran it with both the 0.3 and you know, different configurations, I just didn't like the feel of it quite as much as I like my Iwata Neo. Probably really just down to me being much more used to the Neo. Nonetheless, I decided to, of course, do things in typical Rube Goldberg fashion, do it the hard way, and see if I could build one using readily available parts. And that's where this thing comes in. This is the Procon Boy PS275, and it is a 0.3 millimeter needle trigger style airbrush, and a very good one. Everything that I've heard about these Procon Boy airbrushes, as you can see, they're made by Mr. Hobby, and some people think they may even be made in the same factory as the Iwata stuff. At any rate, everybody says that these things are great. So I thought, well, you know what? I wonder if I could take the 0.3 millimeter guts out of it and put 0.2 millimeter guts in it from a PS267. That's a regular double action, traditional trigger style Procon Boy that's got a 0.2 millimeter needle in it. So I asked people on SMCG, and sure enough, there was a guy in there who had all the parts, and he actually put one together and demonstrated that it worked pretty good. So here we are. I got all the stuff, and that's what I'm going to do. So let's take a look at what all I've got here to put this thing together, and we'll see how it works. All right, so here we go. Obviously, I need the airbrush itself. I want to be able to put a handle on it, like my other ones. So I've got the Iwata custom grip handle, which is that business right there. All right, and then apparently what I need is, obviously, I need a 0.2 millimeter nozzle. And as you can see, this says right here, I got this stuff from spraygunner.com. Those guys have been pretty good. I've ordered a few things from them so far, and they're easy to deal with. This fits the 270, the 267. Then you need the air cap. Now this says two different things, 267, 265. There's two different air caps available for the 267 because it can be built as either a 0.3 or a 0.2. So this is the one for the 0.2. Then I got also the needle cap. This is the little thing, the gizmo that protects your delicate little needle sticking out there. And so I got that. Now it says here that it's for PS 289, but the website assured me that this was for the 267. So hopefully that is correct. It looks like it may not be. We'll find out here directly. At any rate, those are all of the Pro Convoy parts. Then apparently I need this 0.2 millimeter needle that fits an Iwata HPB, and that's what this is. So I'm going to get all this stuff unboxed and put it together, and then we'll see how it works. Okay, so here we go. Now, hopefully you were able to, follow along at warp speed as to what was happening there, but probably not. So let me explain. All right, so everything went together great. All the parts fit. One of the first things I wanted to check was if the diameter of these two needles were the same, and in fact they are. So in theory, I was all good there. All of my air cap parts fit. Everything is good. I was hoping that I could put a smaller cup on here because honestly, the kind of things that I'm going to use this for require very little paint. But the threads for all of my spare cups are different. I think those may all be Grex cups. They're definitely not going to work. Maybe I can find a smaller cup that fits this, but not a big deal if I can't. So I thought I was all good. I had to rob a quick connect off one of my other airbrushes because this one is not a quick connect. It's designed for that hose that comes with this thing. So that's of no use to me. It's unfortunate. It looks like the wonderful Iwata needle or nozzle wrench does not work with this thing, which is a bummer because these wrenches are just a pain in the ass for me. So here's the problem. I thought everything was great until I went to put this needle in. And the problem is it all seems good until you get to the end. And I can feel it definitely getting, oh, now it went in. Okay, it stuck when I did it before. And it was not protruding from the nozzle. But now it is. So I don't know what just happened there, but something magic just occurred, and that's a huge relief because I thought the needle was not going to work. I thought the taper was different. And you might ask, why do you have to go to this Iwata HPB needle to make this work when there's a 0.2 millimeter needle for the PS267 that this nozzle comes from? Well, apparently the body of that 267 needle is not the same diameter as this needle is, and it happens that the HPB needle is. So there you go. That's the reason for that. So looks like I'm all good. Tighten that thing down. Let's double check. Feels good. Feels smooth. All right, so I'm gonna put the tailstock back on there. I don't normally run my tailstocks, and you noticed on my Neo that it was bent, and that reason is I did that on purpose because it doesn't really matter how good you clean them. You're occasionally gonna get the needle stuck in there, and for me, it's just a huge pain in the ass to loosen the chuck, get some pliers, pull the needle out. So I just did some farm boy engineering on my Neo and bent the shit out of that needle. So that is never a problem anymore. I don't know if I'll do that to this one or not. It definitely looks pretty ghetto, but hey, as needs must. It's also just kind of a hassle to put these because they got to line up perfectly with the little hole in the back end there where the needle fuck that. Okay. All right, I'm gonna plug this in and see if we get some airflow. And I would not expect anything otherwise. And I got nothing. Why not? What's going on here? My tank is full. Tank is full. This is pretty weird. Of all the problems I expected to have, not getting airflow certainly was not one of them. Okay, I do have a little bit of airflow. I've got my MAC valve on this thing shut. So let me open that back up. I've got the weird. So I'm getting airflow. If I put it up against my cheek, I can feel it, but I can't hear it. Can't hear it at all. So that's pretty strange, because I mean, I didn't change anything about the air valve. I put this extension on here to enable me to put the handle on there, but that does not affect the air valve itself. So what do we reckon is the deal with that? I mean, there's a gap. There's the proper gap around the nozzle. So I don't know. I'm going to have to go off and do some investigating. I'll get back to you and see if I can solve the problem. Okay, so just going through good old process of elimination type troubleshooting skills. First thing I did was plug in a different airbrush. No problem there. Nothing's changed with my air supply. That clearly was not the issue. My hose is just not quite long enough to get over there to the bench. Hold on a second. Okay, so the next thing I did was pull the needle. That did not solve the problem. Next thing I did after that was take the air cap off. That did not solve the problem. So then I thought, all right, well, let's look at all the parts I've added. And I took this thing off and just went straight to the bottom of the air valve here with this quick connect, and I've got airflow. So the question is why? Because, all right, that just does not make a lot of sense. All right, the action did not feel like it was impeded in any way when I pulled the trigger before. Okay, and as you can see, the plunger on the air valve moves fine, and you can see it's pretty small. It should be able to travel down inside of that thing without any issue. So why would this one piece make the difference? I have no idea, but I'm going to put it back on here. No impedance on the travel that I can feel. Everything is fine there. Oh, yeah, I just figured it out without even, yeah, here's the deal. Yeah, sometimes it is just the simplest shit, and you get all wrapped up in looking for the you know, the like the mechanical issue. Yeah, and it turns out, watch this, see, look how far I can pull the trigger. Yep, but as soon as I put this on there, yeah, the trigger stops right there at the handle. So that obviously is not going to work. I'm going to have to figure out a way around that problem. I'll get right back with you on that. Okay, I'm sure you can decipher from the mess I've made how that went, but in short, I did exactly what we do out here on the farm when shit don't fit. Got out my trusty Proxon and used my basic modeling skills to do an absolutely stunning job of hogging a bunch of material out of the front of that handle. And now I believe that it can do what it's supposed to, the trigger can do what it's supposed to do. Looks like I got full travel, so we'll see. Put that back on there. Yeah, we'll come back to this in a minute. And eureka! It works. Well, at least that far. So now we'll put some paint in it and see what happens. All right, so I've got some paint in this new little airbrush and took a couple of squirts, and it is working great on a paper towel. But look, you can be an absolute baboon and spray successfully on a paper towel. So let's use it in anger, because I got a couple of issues right here. You can see here on the side of the 40 that I've got a self-inflicted gunshot wound right there that I need to repair. That's already been sanded out, so it's ready to go. And then I've got this goddamn ghost seam. You can probably see right here. I've been fighting this thing, but I swear it was not there yesterday. I don't know what happened. I have a suspicion because this thing was getting nuclear blasted sunbeam light early this morning on this side, and I'm wondering if maybe it got warm and that has something to do with it. Anyway, I don't know, but I got to work on it because I'm not going to leave that there. So I've got this little thing loaded up with some of my base color here, and we're just going to get right to it and see how it goes. Yep, right there. Yeah, blew right out. Blew a nice big fat spider there. I've got it set at 10 psi, but I've got the MAC valve wide open. But there we go, that's not too bad. Nice coverage there. I may go back and sand that again because it's still a little raunchy looking. I'm gonna dial down the MAC valve here and see if I can do a little bit of work on this ghost seam, because what I want to do there is I don't want to panic and start piling more filler in there, because number one, the filler can be part of the problem if it's a hot filler. But number two, that, as bad as it looks, is really only like 5/1000ths of an inch deep. It's just not deep enough to warrant really filling it. And the other thing is that if I did and I started sanding it, there's a pretty good chance that I'd just be ripping the filler right back out of it. There you go, you can see it really good now. So what I like to do when they get to this stage is, and this is kind of a lacquer trick, because the fact that lacquer is so sandable is what makes this possible, is I'm going to just pile a shit ton of paint right in that seam, and then I'll come back and sand it. Now obviously I don't want to dump any more paint in there than I have to, so what I will try to do is just work only a little bit into that seam. I'm not sure I'm getting anything. Gonna have to learn the trigger feel on this. Yep, there's some. And it doesn't matter if I get some spidering or some runs right here, because what I'm gonna do is come back and sand that. Hopefully sand it flush. And I'll just keep doing that until it's leveled out. Getting a little bit of must be getting some buildup on the needle, because it's starting to sound a little funky. But there we go. That's a bunch of paint built up on there, and I can probably, yeah, it's probably enough for my first cut at sanding it level. A little more light always helps. Hopefully you can see now what I've got built up there. Maybe. Kind of hard to get the light and the camera down there. There it goes. That's not too bad. You can kind of see it. Anyway, I think suffice it to say that this little airbrush is going to work really good for this kind of stuff. But I'm going to have to spend a little time learning its quirks. Because I can spray really, really small, tiny, no, that's not redundant at all, is it? Little bitty tight things with my Sotar, and as much of a hassle as it is, I know how to do it. I've got the muscle memory for it. And so I'll just have to see if I can achieve the same sort of thing with this. We'll see. Anyway, there we go. It works. Okay, so it is a few hours later in the day. Okay, like 6 hours later in the day. And I have been doing some work with Frankenbrush, and I am officially stoked. This, this has been, I think, very worthwhile because it's doing exactly what I want to do. As I was showing you earlier, I had some touch-ups, and unfortunately they're covered up with masks now, so you can't really see them, but that worked out great. And of course, I got a few more to do that I missed. It's just a constant process with me. But anyway, another thing that it lets me do besides spraying those small areas when I'm doing a touch-up is it lets me very intentionally spray very badly at scale. What I'm trying to illustrate with these insignia is that the paint was just, kind of slapdash sprayed on there by somebody at the factory who was lazy and tired, or both. And then as the sun, works on it, the weathering works on it, you start to see those spray marks. And I feel like that's pretty effective. I like that. It's really much easier to do that than it has been with any of my other airbrushes. So you can kind of see what is going on there. So I'm stoked with that. I also just, with my leftover white after doing that, just did some exercises, just seeing what I could spray. And this is about the most unforgiving scenario you can imagine. White, right on black primer. And you can see, it'll spray from a couple of inches away and do a wide, soft thing. And then getting in really close, it's capable of doing probably, honestly, even finer lines than that. I feel like it's probably more capable than I am, given how unsteady I am and how poorly my hands work, though. I feel like this is not bad. You can see in this that I was doing a lot of scribbling, and there's a lot of bad texture there. But the important thing is, right here next to my thumb, I was able to get it down to where I had barely any halo. And again, this is the most unforgiving situation with black and white. If I were doing something like I was doing on these green scallops, I think I'd be in really good shape, and at least as good as I did with the Sotar on those. So there you go. That is the results. Okay, so there it is, Frankenbrush, and I am pretty sure that this is going to be my new favorite thing. I just had so much more control and felt so much more confidence. I think I definitely still have some learning to do with kind of getting that muscle memory for how the trigger feels and kind of getting it dialed in. I did all of the stuff that I showed you on the 40 at 10 psi at full pop. In other words, with the Mac valve all the way open. And I did most of this business in the same way. I didn't shut the Mac valve down until I started doing this very last bit where I got that really relatively tight halo there. So I think it's definitely got a lot of potential. One thing I've learned, and I'm certainly no expert with painting small like this, there's tons of people who can do way better than I can do, but one thing I've learned is that it's really, really much more about finding the sweet spot than it is when you're painting, normally. And that finding the right magic combination of viscosity and your settings, with your pressure, your flow rate, all those things. It's really all about that. And I wish I had a formula. I just feel like I hit it sometimes and other times I don't. That white paint there is reduced just a little bit, maybe 25% with Mr. Rapid Thinner, and that helps, keeps it from spidering quite so much. But yeah, I'm stoked. This thing, so I think by the time it was all said and done, by the time I got all the parts, I had to order the airbrush from Japan. It took only about 2 weeks, I think, to get here. It was like $140 from Japan on Amazon. And I think by the time I got all the other parts, that the total there is about $250. So, yeah, slightly more expensive than just going and buying the tritium with the 0.2 needle. But, I wanted to see if I could do this, if it would work, and it definitely does. So, if you're one of those guys that's already invested in the Procon Boys system, or you're thinking about it, this definitely gives you some options. So, anyway, I'm stoked, and I hope you guys found that useful. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Much love.